Sunny morning here in Wesel, Germany, and we are checking out those two here and the camera comparison between the Huawei Pura 80 Ultra against the Vivo X200 Ultra. And here you can see the camera specs, both with a triple lens setup, but the Huawei has an ace up its sleeve because it has a switchable tele-zoom camera. Can switch between two focal lengths. It is using a little bit of an optical hybrid trick, like optically cropping into the sensor, plus an optical zoom, plus a bit of digital trickery. And yeah, if this is really the new king of telezooms, we have to figure out in this comparison. Then we have a 1-inch type sensor on the Huawei, where the Vivo relies on a smaller kind of sensor, 1.28 inch size sensor, but it has this also for its ultra wide angle, where the Huawei has a bit of a smaller sensor there for the ultra wide angle. So what will be quite interesting to see if they can compete and how they can compete. And then we have some front-facing shooters as well, and I think we start off with the front-facing videos. Front-facing video now on the Pura 80 Ultra and the Vivo X200 Ultra. What do you think about both of them? Which one is wider? Which one has better stabilization and HDR? What do you think? Which one has better face colors even? I think it's a bit wider on the Huawei, but I can even go wider with the wide option here, where you can see my microphone a little bit more prominent, where I don't have any options to do this on the Vivo, but the Vivo has a nice option where I can flip to the back-facing cameras, which is quite nice. Huawei otherwise has 2x zoom, which is also quite nice, and the 1x option, which is I think the one that I will stick to. Both look identical in terms of colors for me. Which one is better here? We have autofocus on both, so here you can see the Huawei is focusing nicely on the Vivo, and now the other one also very nicely. So both feature autofocus, which is quite nice, but which one is better in terms of stabilization? I think the Huawei has a bit of an edge in terms of stabilization and its features of the more ultra-wide angle that we can achieve here. But you be the judge, which one is working better for you? Write it down in the comments. Main camera footage now on the Vivo X200 Ultra, quite cropped in, 35mm, and main camera on the Huawei Pura 80 Ultra, 24mm. Which one gives you a bit more background blur? I know the Vivo is super, I have to stretch my arm, super closed up. I think the Huawei also try to match it somehow so that it's roughly the same, so you can compare the bokeh, the background bokeh between those two. Which one is performing better in these situations here with different lights? Now I'm going into the shadow. How is it adapting this, and how good is stabilization on both here, and which one is performing better? And gladly we have also the ultra wide angle on the Vivo, so let's switch to the ultra wide angle there. And we also have an ultra wide angle here on the Huawei. So let's go ultra wide angle here on the Huawei as well. So which one is performing better here in this regard? In this case, let me try to get my hands out of the way, because they're very wide. Both of them have pretty wide angles there on the ultra wide angle. And yeah, I have my preference already. I think you know already that the Vivo has a little bit of larger sensor there than the Huawei, but which one is performing better in this situation? Which one has better colors? Which one has better stabilization here? And we will also perform a little zoom test. So let's check them side by side, how good they are in terms of zooming. So here we have the ultra wide angle on both, and you can see that the Huawei is quite a bit wider here. Why is that the case? Because the Vivo adds a little bit of more of a crop for better stabilization. You can turn it off in the Pro mode, and I will do it and show you shortly how it will look like then. But let's go and let's go to 2x and 35mm. So 35 here and 2x there. And switching I think is both very good. That 85 and 3.7, which is 89. Which one is performing better here? And let's go 10x. So 230mm and 240mm. Which one is performing better here? In terms of stability, at least on screen, the Huawei is doing better. Let's go to 460mm and here to 20 times, which is a little bit less on the Huawei. Now I think the Vivo is a little bit less shaky. So which one is performing better? And now let's go back to the main camera sensors, 35 and 1x, 24mm. Both I think pretty smooth, and yeah, which one is performing better on screen? The Vivo looks a bit over sharpened, but yeah, you tell me which one is performing better here. So, both now at the widest settings. I had to go to the Pro mode on the Vivo X200 Ultra to enable the wider field of view of the wider angle. Is it competing now against the Huawei that in the normal video mode already has a wider angle of view than the Vivo has in its normal video mode? So which one is performing better in your opinion? Write it down in the comment section. Let's jump into this comparison between those two, and I'm recording this now a second time because the first recording was like 35 minutes and it's just too long. We had a balloon festival here in Wesel, Germany, so I have many shots of the balloons here. We can see that the exposure on the X200 Ultra is a little bit too dark. Yes, the sun was setting, you can see the time there, and it was not as bright as anymore, the sun was not out there. The Pura 80 Ultra nails it in terms of exposure here, maybe a little bit leaning towards making it brighter than it actually was, but it's a bit too dark on the Vivo. The Vivo, however, gets the text more right, the processing is better here, we have a bit of noise creeping in, and you can see here a little bit like issues, both have a little bit of issues there. And you can zoom in even further here on both. This is a bit of an unfair comparison. Let's go to the next one. Again, a little bit duller looking here, a bit too dark maybe, a bit too overexposed. The details are a bit lost there where the Vivo keeps it in a little bit together with the noise. And the same goes for how many people are there. You can count, I think there are 2. And we have, also some people who are doing advertisements here. We can see warmer up colors on the X200 Ultra, where it's a bit more bluish on the Pura 80 Ultra. The truth is somewhere in between. And the detail levels are fine on both. We have a bit more over sharpening on the Huawei for sure. You can see it here clearly where it's a bit softer on the Vivo in this regard. And you can also clearly here see it with the text that has been over sharpened on the Huawei a little bit. So I would prefer the Vivo in this case, even though the dark grayish kind of color is not the mood that I had when I was watching those going in there. But it's also not on the Pura 80 Ultra, which is just too blue. And this is the shot that I took. Here I think the Pura 80 Ultra is doing a much better job in portraying what was actually there. You can see maybe it's like a slightly bit less different color there than here. Where here you can see this is a bit too grayish. Color consistency is something else we can talk about. 35 versus 24mm with the main camera sensor. Colors are the interesting parts here. I think we have a bit more different. This is like red and this is going into a bit like maybe even like pinkish there already. Green grass, another thing, very dull looking, very uniform looking, where here we have a little bit of like different patches and pattern, but both are very fine. It's a bit brighter on the Huawei, and yes, 35mm versus here the 36 that I can also choose is a bit darker, it's a bit brighter up, less detailed, more detailed optics versus digital zoom, but even like a 24mm there's a bit more detail, but it's just like because it's 24mm. Anyway, let's go to maximum zoom here, and yes, there are 2 people here, you can see it a bit, processing wise, the Huawei is a bit better looking than the Vivo. Let's check out the ultra-wide angle. This is a huge difference in terms of ultra-wide angle. The Huawei is going completely berserk here in making this 2 hours earlier, and the Vivo X200 Ultra is making it, what is it, winter time? It's like totally blue and life sucked out of this whole greenery here, which was not actually the case, but it's not definitely how the Huawei was doing it. But if I have to take one of those shots, and not just only in terms of colors, the Huawei is more going towards what I actually saw with my own eyes. Just have to like get the vibrancy a bit down there. And the X200 Ultra is just like too lifeless looking there. But in terms of detail levels and sharpness, if you have to crop, then definitely the Vivo is winning here. It's a larger sensor, edgeness, sharpness, just better. And then we have a portrait selfie actually that I did with the main camera sensor on both. I used the main optics on the X200 Ultra at 35mm, and I cropped in to 36mm here on the Pura 80 Ultra, which is using in the portrait mode the slider and go from 1x to 1.1x, and this is what you get there. 2.8 versus 2, yes, the virtual aperture issue is like Vivo is always switching depending on which lens you do, and the Huawei, if you set it up once, you can switch between all the lenses and it will stay at the same aperture. Anyway, this is not physical aperture on the Pura 80 Ultra. Actually, it is a physical aperture, what I want to say, on the Pura 80 Ultra, because it doesn't have to rely on the virtual one for this one. And it's a virtual one here on the X200 Ultra. Brighter X200 Ultra, a bit more reddish looking, a little bit less contrasty looking, a bit more warmish, yellowish looking on the 80 Ultra. The 80 Ultra is more realistic. Why is that the case? Because it's a yellow light that we have there, and I was looking at the mirror there and I have this skin color. It's maybe over punching it a slightly bit. This is like the tendency that Huawei has, over punching the colors a bit, but it's more realistic. This is just too red and there's green mixing in. X200 Ultra, I remember it being better. You can see even my eyes are like, where's the blue in the eyes? It's green almost. Wrong color. Eyebrows, recreation of eyebrows. Huawei is doing a better job than the Vivo. The Vivo looks less sharp and artificially sharpening it up. Hair cutouts, nice. Nicer hair color. I think the greenish or more warmish color of my hair I like a bit better on the Vivo. But I cannot exclude that my hair really looks like this. And it's sharper. I can also not exclude that. Otherwise, the cutouts are very nice here. Let's go to another shot. Ultra wide angle. And we want to capture the difference between those two in terms of HDR and also size T-star coating. Much better on the X200 Ultra. The Pura 80 Ultra has a sun star effect there. Lots of chromatic aberrations. It's a bit wider, but don't be fooled here that you can see the whole Turkish Airlines shop there. It's just a look at the H here, look at here, a slightly different angle. Differences that I want to show you is sharpness, first of all, then slightly almost like overexposure here. But here I think, again, the greens are sucked out of color, which is not so realistic, where it's here overpunched. HDR, better on the Vivo. I would take ultra wide angle, definitely the Vivo will win. In all the ultra wide angle shots that I did here in daylight, the Vivo is winning. Not sure what some people are saying, that the Pura 80 Ultra's ultra wide angle is so good. I don't see it. The Vivo is always winning. Main camera sensor here, cropped in 2 times on the Pura 80 Ultra and 1.5 times on the X200 Ultra. We have the much duller colors again with the greenery, where the Pura 80 Ultra is punching it up a little bit, but both capture the nuances of the different patches of the green and grass quite nicely. Though I have a different thing when it comes to the reds, because the reds here on the Huawei, even though it's slightly bit more punched up, are more realistic. And especially the construction crane there in the background is almost orangey on the Vivo, which is wrong because it is a yellow crane there in the background. And the blue in the sky is also it's like we're going like light blue here on the Huawei, much more realistic than the darker blue that we have here on the Vivo. Yes, in this case, the Huawei has better colors, which is quite nice and interesting. Even though some people might say it is more realistic looking on the X200 Ultra. Why is that the case? Because what the Huawei is doing is it has the more correct colors, but it's punching them a little bit up. This is what makes it more goofy looking, a bit more artificial looking. So if Huawei would have added a natural mode, but wait a minute, there is a natural mode as well. We'll talk about it, but in a second. Then I was quite surprised the Pura 80 Ultra fixed this issue with its brand new update there that I got right after I did the test with the Pura 70 Ultra. So this shot here at 89mm 3.7x is much nicer looking than again the Pura 70 Ultra. If you remember that. Colors are very, very matched between those two. The only difference that I see here is more sharpening on the Huawei, but in this case I don't care because it looks realistic, the sharpening, and it's a bit softer on the Vivo. And this is why I would say the Huawei is taking the crown here, even though, yeah, if I want to pixel peep here, and the distinction between the leaves is much better there on the Huawei. It is definitely a bit artificial sharpening. Maybe there's even like natural sharpness as well involved there. Sometimes a bit overexposure, the colors maybe play a role as well there, but the sharpening overall, the sharpness level is much better. But be aware, what's happening now with the Huawei? The old issue with the colors are back. You can see here, zoom in, it's just like too contrasty, too goofy looking, too much punched up. And it's not far off from here. When I zoom in here, you can see, let me go to 100%. This is how it looks like. And if I go in here, this is how it looks like. The yellow is much more pronounced. It's like something wrong with the colors on Huawei. Or the red maple syrup, I almost said. The sensor is like not capturing this anymore, or not working at this distance anymore. I don't know what's going on there. For this shot here, colors look nicer on the X200 Ultra, and I would also say that I think here now the Pura 80 Ultra looks now a bit too over sharpened. So this is what I don't tolerate so much. It's just barely tolerable, I think. I would say not one over the other, because like it's more realistic looking on the X200 Ultra. It's a bit too sharpened up on the Pura 80 Ultra. And when we zoom in even further, we can see the difference between those two, where the X200 Ultra, I would give even the crown here, because yeah, the crown looks more realistic, more detailed, more 3D, and the same goes for the scepter. You can see it looks almost like a painting here. You can see what it actually is. So yes, the algorithm, it's not the optics, it's just the algorithms being better on the X200 Ultra and recreating this with the AI. This we can ignore. This is a very interesting, I can like talk hours and hours about this one here. QR code things, more sharpened up on the Huawei. Color difference, a bit more punchy colors there. A bit darker colors, a bit brighter colors. You can see the difference between those two. You can see what's happening here with the colors, what is happening here with the contrast level. You can see that I almost thought this is the Huawei, because it's like brightening everything a little bit up and more punchy, where here it's a bit more contrasty look. Quite interesting. This is brighten up, this is more contrasty. Then we go even further, and then it becomes very interesting about how they are doing their algorithms. There's a battle about the algorithms, and they both have some issues with the reflections, where here the Pura is losing against the Vivo. The Vivo is losing here, where the faces on the Vivo, it doesn't look like faces, where here you can at least see that they are probably faces. So there's a difference in how the algorithms work, and here as well how the algorithms work. I just was surprised that Huawei was like, this is probably when I'm 70 is what I will see if I don't have glasses on. Hopefully it won't be. That's what Vivo is showing here right now. Anyway, now let's go to the selfies. Wider on the Huawei, a little bit cropped in, 24mm here, f4 on both. I was now matching them. We have a bit of a difference in terms of colors, a bit of an halo effect, I think, from the HDR that I see, but both are doing relatively good there in this regard. It's a bit too warmed up here. The car is not this warm beige almost looking, it is more this white looking here, but it might be also the contrast levels being a bit higher on the Huawei. However, when it comes to detail levels here, you can see the Huawei is winning against the Vivo again with the selfie. Much more realistic, much more detailed there. The eyebrows a bit soft, everything a bit soft. I like the eye color being more towards the blue and a bit brighter, but yeah, there was a bit of a shadow. However, what the Huawei is losing is against the Vivo is the cutout here of the virtual bokeh. You can see the hair strains that are cut out here, and they're kept in here. So yes, in terms of colors as well, I think a bit yellowish, even like warm and red and yellowish a bit there. Where here it's a bit more realistic. I would go with the Huawei for this one. You can correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section. Let's go to the macro shots. Color-wise, it's very hard, and I'm a little bit colorblind, so I will not tell you which color this flower really has, because I'm looking one angle, I'm looking at the screen of the phone, I'm looking at the display that I have as well brought out there just to check, and it looks like the Vivos. Then I take the Huawei. Slightly different angle, and it's looking a bit more bluish. Maybe my eyes are bad. Anyway, the macro shots here. Detail level, Huawei is much better. You can see the yellow, I think it's pollen that is like living there on the stem of the flower. Color-wise, also more standing out than on the Vivo. And then there's another shot, 10x zoom on both fantastic for the macro mode, but I think the ultra macro winner here. I give it slightly to Huawei, but you can also correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. Huawei also, just like the Vivo, has the more depth mode. It looks like this here. When zoomed out, gives it more depth, but also looks a little bit duller and not so sharp and detailed anymore. The same goes if you zoom in a little bit more. It's like even getting worse, and the colors are wrong. So forget about this more depth mode, just take a normal shot there, it might be better. Then HDR, Pura 80 Ultra sensor claims to have 16 EVs. I'm testing this out here in this shot, and also testing out the Zeiss T-Star coating with the main camera sensors now. The Zeiss T-Star coating is much better working on the X200 Ultra. Sun flares are like hidden almost, but everything is a bit more blue and darker. where I was surprised. Probably the red maple sensor is working on the Pura 80 Ultra because the colors are right. Because this wall is not blue, it's red. Or this, and it's dull red that we have here. And the greenery looks also nice. But yeah, this might be, there's the difference. 16 EVs and red maple sensor in one shot. Here you have it. How realistic is it that you take a shot like this and you're happy with the Huawei? I don't know. Next shot, color differences. Test them out on kids' toys because they're always very colorful. And here I think the Vivo is over-punching the colors a little bit. The greenery, a bit over-punched. The blue there in the background, much more realistic on the Huawei. Even though the Huawei has some issues with HDR. Believe it or not, I think it's overexposing slightly here. And don't mind that it's a bit sharper on the Vivo because the Vivo is at 35 and the Huawei at 1.1x zoom, which is 36 millimeters. So yes, it is a bit naturally a bit unsharp. But here I think it's overexposed slightly. And what you also see in terms of colors, they are a bit brighter on the Huawei. Huawei has a natural mode as well that you can turn on. When I turn this on, you get very, very close to the one of the Vivo Zeiss natural colors, which is super, super impressive. However, the Vivo Zeiss natural colors are over-punching the colors here still, like the blues in the background. A bit over-punched, as you see here, like the greens, a bit over-punched. Here, however, those colors here, very, very close. And you can see the overexposure is gone, but also, yeah, detail level-wise. But it's about colors. Colors ultra-wide angle, forget about it. The X200 Ultra is doing it wrong, it's a bit too warm. This is too cold. Yes, the natural mode here is correcting this slightly better warmth, more like the beige warmth that it actually was. Also this here, much too overpunched on the Zeiss natural ultra-wide angle from the Vivo. Detail-wise, the Vivo, of course, winning, but it is a bit overexposed here in this case, where this is not. Choose your poison, I would say. Here, the Huawei going more towards what's more realistic there. And the Vivo is a bit too warm, like I said. And it's also like, as you can see, the green patches there around. What's going on here? Also around the chimney. Not sure what's going on there. Otherwise, yeah, color-wise, I think, yes, the Pura 80 Ultra can win sometimes. But the consistency on the X200 Ultra is something that the Pura 80 Ultra still lacks a little bit. And if you have to put it on social media, you probably take the X200 Ultra, not the Pura 80 Ultra for that shot. Because it's just too, what's going on with the blue here? Why is it blue? Here, it's green. It should be green. So red maple sensor not working. And this is more mind-boggling and tells you that all camera phones have issues with colors, is this shot here. Because here you have to combine both shots to have the more real colors. Because this green here is more realistic than this overpunched green that we have here. But this lifeless green that we have here on the X200 Ultra is not realistic at all. The Pura 780 Ultra is more realistic. Take what you want out of it. Talking about another color shot here, again a bit too warmed up on the X200 Ultra. More realistic on the 80 Ultra, but the 80 Ultra is still a little bit overexposed. And yeah, in this case, 37 millimeters, I was even cropped in a little bit further. More detailed on the Vivo. I would take the Vivo in this shot, but yes, color-wise, the Pura 80 Ultra with its red maple sensor has the potential and shows that it captures color more realistically. The X200 Ultra is more artistically capturing colors. Also for the greens here, much too yellow on the X200 Ultra. Nailed it on the Pura 80 Ultra. But I cannot use the shot on the Pura 80 Ultra probably because overexposed. Next shot, my daughter here, portrait mode, just to show you the issues in processing on the Huawei. What's going on with the, what is it, the hairs on the eyelid hair. It was like cut off and then it's like hanging there in the middle of the air, where here it like captured it immediately very nicely. Hair color much nicer on the Vivo, a bit too dark on the Pura. Here the blues a bit more punch, darker on the Huawei. Yellow a bit more punchy. This is like the tendency of Vivo to yellow, to warm everything up a little bit in terms of punchiness. bit more realistic on the Pura 80 Ultra in this case. Otherwise, yeah, you can also see here, it's like a bit too warm, where here it nailed the color. So yes, the red maple sensor is working, but consistency is more there on the Vivo side. And that's it in terms of the daylight photos. I will talk about the portraits right now. Checking out the portraits, and what we can see here on first glance is already the color difference and how much more reddish my face looks on the X200 Ultra, and I really don't like it. The Pura 80 Ultra has much more natural colors. This is way closer to my face color than the X200 Ultra. Both are doing a fine job there with their primary telephoto sensor there. In terms of sharpness and detail, I think both are on par. Both are very, very detailed, very, very sharp. Slightly over sharpened maybe. Yes, they are recreating my eyebrows. Both are doing that. And both have this cutout, detect hair quite nicely. But you can see also that the Huawei is sharpening up a little bit more, or is also more natural sharp. One of those is true for sure, where the Vivo is a little bit less sharp. But overall, colors better on the Huawei. For sure, and this is one issue that you have to calculate in when it comes to portraits and you don't want to edit your portraits, are the colors, and there is where Huawei really shines. When it comes to background blur, both were set to f4, even though Huawei is only showing f2.4, so it's basically only showing the real aperture. You can see both are doing basically the same job there, and Huawei may be even better with the background blur here, gradually blurring it out, where here it appears to be, it's also gradually blurring out, but then it's deciding, oh, there's text, I have to sharpen it up, and then it's a bit sharpened. At least it looks to me like this. Anyway, let's go to the next photo, which is the 2x zoom, which is 50mm on the Vivo and it's 48 on the Pura. And what we can clearly see here again is the face color, much more reddish looking, much more contrasty looking on the Vivo, which I don't like so much because it's not very pleasant to look at. Where the Pura is, yeah, a bit maybe more warm in terms of yellowish there, warm. Both are redoing and sharpening things up, the eyebrows and so on, but both doing a fine job. And here, I would like to say it should be in theory, because it's only from 35 to 50, 1.5 times crop, but it doesn't appear too much sharp to be sharper on the Vivo here in comparison to the Huawei. What do you think? The eyebrows, the eyes, it's very, very hard to almost on par. They are on par with the better color on the Huawei for sure. And I'm using size natural colors on the Vivo, by the way. And then we have the 135, and this is where I think here is a clear differentiator in terms of colors. Again, a bit warmer colors, but now it works a little bit better on the Vivo than on the Huawei, where the Huawei has, I think, a bit too much contrast on my hair overall. And here I think we can see a little bit of a better performance on the Vivo. But it's very, very hard to tell. I can see both are resharpening eyebrows and so on. I would even say that Huawei is doing a slightly bit better job. It appears to be sharper, and it's, at least here on my, right eyebrow, it seems not to be too unnatural. It's a bit softer on the Vivo. The Vivo gets my eyes wrong because they're not this greenish kind of looking. The Huawei has them also wrong, a bit darker. Like I said, it's like they're both not perfect when it comes to this. Yeah, the hairline's way too over sharpened here on the Huawei, where the Vivo way too soft. It would be gradually getting there softer, but it's not really. So it's soft, uniform, softness. Yeah, both are in the same playing field. The light there on the side, it's a yellow light, so yes, but I think the Vivo is overdoing it with the terms of yellow there on my face, where the Huawei also does something there, but it's not so much there. And the Vivo is calculating out the shadow, which the Huawei keeps more in. It's on par. You can choose your poison here between those two. I honestly like the Vivo better than the Pura there. Then the Pura, however, has another ace up its sleeve, because it can go up to 10x portrait mode, 240mm. And I was surprised. This is my surprising face. And I was even more surprised then when you check out the detail levels here and compare it now with the 10x one. It looks better. It looks better. It's like not so over sharpened, looks a bit more natural, has lots of detail also in my eyes, gets the color more right because it's going more towards the bluish kind of side there. But here it's more in the greenish kind of side. So yeah, it is. Yeah, you can see here. You can be the judge which one you like better here. It is, in general, the portraits on the Huawei I like a lot better because of better colors. The 135, not almost no better details there, and I would say like sometimes it's a bit over sharpened on the Huawei for sure. The Vivo has also this tendency. It's also not perfect, but it's something that keeps me leaning towards the Huawei overall, giving the win in terms of portrait shots. Especially this year amazed me the most because natural colors on the Huawei, where we have, I don't know, like I sunbathed too long or something on the Vivo. Yeah, I'm giving the win for the portraits for the Huawei. Night video now on the Huawei Pura 80 Ultra using the internal mics and the main camera sensor. It is not completely dark right now, but you see the light there in the background. I'm walking towards the light, just like always. It's a yellow light, so don't be shocked if my face is yellow. And now I'm standing under the light. Let's walk a little bit into the dark here, away from the light. How well is the lens coating here on this device? And now standing in the dark, facing the light. What do you think about the Pura 80 Ultra stabilization, colors and mic performance? And now I'm recording with the Vivo X200 Ultra, and it's probably a bit cropped in because 35mm. Yes, if it's too dark, it switches automatically to 35mm, which is just did. And yeah, it's a bit cropped in. How does it work still? Walking towards the light, internal mics. Have to work a little bit harder because I'm a bit further away. Now I'm standing under the light. How well is the lens coating here? We know it's size T-star coating there. Light now in the background. I'm walking towards the dark. And then what do you think about stabilization here? How good is the stabilization here? And now I'm turning around in the dark, facing the light. What do you think? Which one is working better? This one or the Pura 80 Ultra? Night photos or sunset photos, let's start it like this. Super interesting. Main camera sensor on both here. We have a wider field of view on the Pura 80 Ultra for sure. Also more contrasty look on the 80 Ultra for sure. More, let's say, artistic kind of looking. Also with the orangey yellow sunset there. Looks very nice, but also a bit artistic. Not very realistic. The X200 Ultra looks more realistic, but like I said, like in the daylight shots, sometimes it's a bit lifeless and life taken out with the size natural colors there. Which one is more realistic? Actually, it's the Pura 80 Ultra. How comes? Oh, this is impossible. This is like outrageous. How can you say that? Because this yellow here, even if it's too punchy, it is more realistic than what's going on here. This is not what I saw with my eyes. It was going more in this direction there, but only for the yellow. When it comes to the greens here and the greenery, it's just too punchy. It's just like more realistic, sharper on the, it's a bit more noisy as well, but on the Vivo. This here nicely captured the warmth as well. It's maybe a bit too punchy again, but this is like, where is the warmth from the sun hitting this gate? It's not on the Vivo's shot, which is a bit sad. So yeah, if I will have to choose one or the other, I would probably take the Pura 80 Ultra, vibrancy taking a bit down, and would post it. Where on the X200 Ultra, could I raise the vibrancy a little bit? Maybe. You be the judge which one you like here better. Ultra wide angle on the both. It's like, again, the ultra wide angle on the Pura 80 Ultra is like 2 hours earlier. Boom. Turned on. And it was not even like doing a long exposure, it was just taking directly the shot. The same on the X200 Ultra, because the sun was setting, was enough light there. It's just, I don't know what's going on in the 80 Ultra. It's like brightening so much. It looks like almost daylight. Like, well, here, maybe, let's go back here, it's too dark. Maybe the ultra wide angle here is doing a better job than the main camera sensor on the Vivo X200 Ultra, because it captures the essence of the sun going in there. the greenery is a bit lifeless again, and it's not realistic. No matter what you say, it is not realistic. It's going more towards, yeah, it's way too bright and a bit too punchy on the X200, on the Pura for sure, but it's going more towards the Pura's greenery there. So maybe the red maple sensor is working as a sensor. Detail level, we don't have to talk about it. It's clear as night and day. The Vivo is better. And there's another shot. I forgot. This is the let's go back. This is the automatic shot with the original mode, and then there's a natural one as well. But the natural one, for some reason, turned off HDR. I don't know what's going on there. But the greeneries nailed. The natural mode nails the greeneries. It's not as this. This is color-wise. The Huawei with its natural mode is nailing it. Besides the sky, which is like, where is the HDR when you want to have it? It's not here. Anyway, next shot here, 10x zoom, 240 on the Huawei and 230 on the X200 Ultra. Let's check out the detail levels here. What you can say about that? Colors wise, the Huawei better because it's yellow and not orange sign. Detail level wise, it's a win for the Vivo. Maybe it's just a better algorithm that is like getting this text more readable. Let's look at this. Maybe, yeah. Artificial, less artificial. Yeah, it's a win for the Vivo. This shot here, very, very close, but you can see also a bit more warmth on the Pura 80 Ultra, more orangey kind of look, more yellowish kind of look. X200 Ultra always likes to yellow up stuff. It's also yellowing up stuff here, where here it's a bit more orangey. And you can see the difference in terms of colors here, where it's even green on the Vivo. Vivo is wrong with the colors, I can tell you that. It's a bit red here, yes, because the stones are really red there and the light is yellow. So yeah, make out of it what you want, 89 versus 85 millimeters. Detail level wise, not much of a difference. I would say they're both almost identical. You can look up this window there. You can see like the little even details on the Z6 that is like written there. Almost identical. Maybe I can see a little bit of more noise creeping in, but it's like I have to really, why should I pixel peep like this? It is, both are very good there. It's just that not much of a difference between those two. Here you can see also the difference in terms of colors. The Vivo is making it a bit greenish looking. This is a bit more orangey because the light is orangey there. Yes, color-wise, I think the biggest surprise for me, the Vivo is losing there. Selfie. And here we have more contrast, a bit more like flash enabled on the X200 Ultra with its 24mm selfie front camera. Detail level wise, this is what you get with the Vivo. And here, this is what you get with the Huawei. Both are struggling. If I have, both look a bit artificial, especially what's going on with the eyebrows here, what's going on with the eyebrows here. It's like choose your poison, basically. This goes like almost like the difference what we had in daylight with Huawei versus the Vivo shot. It's going more towards the red on the Huawei now, where it's more going towards like yellowish on the, more brightened up on the Vivo. You choose yours. I don't think I can really choose. It's like yes, the hair and the cutouts maybe, but no, not even that. It's like both are struggling there. Slightly bit better there on the Vivo. Very hard to tell which one I would take here on this shot there. I don't know. I really don't. I would take probably either one of them. It's just like if you see a brighter picture, you're leaning towards more the brighter picture there. So I'm leaning more towards the Vivo. Now it's getting really, really dark. And again, the Huawei is making a little bit of, making it appear a bit brighter than it actually was, where the X200 Ultra now nails it a bit better, but where it fails is the sky color being too dark, where yes, it is brighter and more correct on the Pure 80 Ultra. Otherwise here, it's looking very interesting. This is the main camera sensor against the ultra wide angle on the X200 Ultra. And yes, this is a night and day difference. If you want to have wider field of view, like 24, 28-ish kind of millimeters, choose the main camera sensor, 1 inch on the Huawei for sure. But we can also go the other way around, like 35 millimeter, and we know already 35 versus 36 here, or 36 versus 35. Sky color nailed on the Pura. Colors in general nailed a little bit better on the Pura. Look at this here, look at that. Better in terms of details on the Vivo for sure. But whereas in daylight, the difference between those two was a bit more obvious, it is less obvious here. We have much more noise creeping in on the Vivo. Much more noise than I would really like, to be completely honest. And yeah, both are doing, I think, a fine job there. With maybe slight head that I would give to the X200, but it's almost identical. And then very, very interesting shot with the ultra wide angles. Maybe this is what people were talking about. Oh, the Huawei is better than the X200 Ultra. It's just brightness. It's brighter again with the Pura HD Ultra. Normal mode, I didn't use the natural mode. It's brighter. In detail level wise, both struggle. But I would still give it to the Vivo. Because it's a little bit more details there. It's a bit more noise kept in, yes. Both have issues with the light there. It was very dark. Maybe a bit more details here than there. It's a bit more yellowish, but we know Vivo likes to yellow things up a little bit more. Look at the fence there, a little bit more detail than here. So yes, even at night, very dark conditions. It looks brighter on the Pura HD Ultra. More details on the X200 Ultra, so I would take the X200 Ultra, even if colors are not always like correct. And this is also quite interesting because this is now the night mode kicked really in on the Pura HD Ultra and took a 5-second, I think, shot here. Where the X200 Ultra took like a 2-second shot or 2.5-second shot, something like this. And this is what you get out of there. Yes, the building was red, but what I saw with my own eyes is what the X200 Ultra, maybe the X200 Ultra is slightly bit too dark there. But more leaning towards the X200 Ultra, what I saw with my own eyes, where this is like I was surprised that it's so red, this building. At daylight, I would expect it to be so red, but not at nighttime. So which one captures the more realistic shot? Yeah, I would say in terms of colors and the nighttime feeling, the Vivo. In terms of detail levels, however, it's a bit more noise creeping in, it's a bit cleaner, it's a bit, yeah, more details. I think the larger sensor is winning, but there's not really a comparison. You can see the colors, the difference there. Where here it's like, whoo, there's a what? And you don't see this here at all on the X200 Ultra. So you can choose your poison again. More realistic X200 Ultra, more details, Pura HD Ultra. And then this shot here shows T-Star coating again winning because this was above a light. Color is wrong, however, completely, because everything is completely yellow now here. Where here it's making it more white, but we have this line here that's coming from the light. Detail levels here, I think the Huawei is slightly better. And when you look at this is like very, very hard to tell about those two here in night. Zoom, it's like 10 times zoom, yeah. Slight win for the Huawei, in my opinion. And then we go even further, which is like 600 millimeters at this night angle. Definitely the Vivo more realistic colors because it was so dark, but it's a bit going towards the green almost. Where the Huawei, if I would have to edit one of those, probably I'd take the Huawei because I can just make it a little bit less bright and then have, I think, the bluish kind of sky. Well, it's a bit too greenish looking on the X200 Ultra in my opinion. Detail wise, well, let's check it out. Which one is better? Better algorithm on the Vivo against the better optics on the Huawei. I don't see much of a difference. The algorithm's making this a bit smaller. This is like a little less detailed. On par. There's not much of a difference between those two. And then this shot, a very interesting shot because this blue is so intense that even with my eyes, I see it overexposing in my eyes. This blue, so intense is this blue. It's fantastic what the Vivo is doing out of this. And it's not sharpening, there's a white light around this Baufi Invest sign. Here you can see it's like overexposing already, it's almost white. Where here it's like green, which is not, it's blue. It's really powerful blue, you can see it surrounding here. And yeah, this is at 50mm on both. And I took another shot with the Pura 80 Ultra. This time around I took the natural shot, natural route, and it's, first of all, it's getting darker, which is quite interesting. Then detail levels you can see here, like text-wise, for example. Slight wind for the Vivo, maybe. It keeps more noise in. Maybe this is why the case is not much of a difference. Let's check out here this one. And here you can see when I take the natural shot, it's going towards the colors of the Vivo with less noise, more smoothing. And I think it nailed the Baufi Invest because he is slightly overexposed. And the blue, it also somehow nailed it, where here's green, which is like wrong, but it's still blue there, but it also doesn't know how to handle this. So it's very hard to handle this with the main camera sensor here. I would say equally big problems on both here. This here, win for the Vivo. Not much of a difference now, is it? It's just like more smoother. This is like, yeah, you be the judge which one you like here better. And then I think this is the last shot here, T-Star coating better against the Pura 80 Ultra. Detail levels here as well. Both struggle a little bit. You both have this, like you can see these lines here, white lines here as well. Color-wise, overexposure on the Vivo, where here, even like you can almost read this sentence down below, which is quite fantastic on the Huawei. So I would give this one to the Huawei actually. Looks a bit nicer on the Huawei. And that's it in terms of night photos. So night photos are also very neck to neck. This will be probably the most interesting video for this year in terms of camera comparisons. Nighttime video right now on the Pura 80 Ultra, even darker than in my previous video. And I'm walking towards the light here, as you see. Using the 1-inch type sensor that we have here, the newly developed 1-inch type sensor cooperation with Huawei. So what do you think about this one here? And yeah, right after this video there will be the Vivo, and then we will see my ranking and conclusions. So write down in the comment section, what do you think, which one is the best here? And yeah, we are rocking still the 35mm here on the Vivo X200 Ultra because it deemed the light being too low, so it's switching to the 35mm. I'm trying to stretch as far as I can so you can get roughly an estimate and can compare them. Yeah, what do you think? Which one is performing better of those two here? We will see now what my ranking will show you. The ranking and conclusion of probably one of this year's most anticipated camera comparison, TLDR, the Vivo X200 Ultra. Old and new king, 4.765 points. The Huawei Pura 80 Ultra, 4.723 points. This is the closest probably that you saw so far this year. Apart from last year's flagships, the X100 Ultra and the Oppo Find X8 Ultra being also very close together, but this is getting even closer. Let's go into more details. Main camera photo quality. Even though Huawei has definitely the technically more advanced sensor and lens setup with the variable aperture that has some nice features, like you can create those star bursts, star rails if you want to, by just closing up the aperture in the night, for example, and have the lights like creating then those very nice and shiny effects. So you have a little bit of more flexibility that can create very nice effects there. Also, the main camera, the sensor, has better HDR capabilities, but the Vivo X200 Ultra with its software and its chip is fighting against it, and sometimes in certain conditions can even beat the Huawei thanks to its better processing here. So this is one thing that is very important. It's not only the better hardware that we have in the Huawei, it's also the processing. And for most cases you will also see that the sharpness level on the X200 Ultra, but this is something just 35mm being closer up a little bit to the actual action, is a little bit higher on the Vivo and opposed to the Huawei. And that's not only in the 12 megapixel mode in Huawei, but also if you have activated the higher megapixel count, like 25 megapixels, it's a little bit better on the Pura 80 Ultra, but it's still not beating the Vivo X200 Ultra in that matter, certainly in certain aspects when it comes to sharpness and detail levels. What I like, however, on the Huawei is the color accuracy. Yes, everyone is praising size natural colors on Vivo, but in my tests it was Huawei that has delivered more accurate colors most of the time. Most of the time means also Huawei has to work a little bit more on consistency. This is why we have here an equal pair of 4.9, even though yes, technically the sensor on the Huawei is better. But we have to do and talk about the consistency. But we have to talk about as well as the ultra wide angle. It's clear as day and night. The Vivo X200 Ultra is better with the ultra wide angle. Huawei made some huge steps from one big step, let's say it like this, from the predecessor, the Pure 70 Ultra, but it's not enough to beat the X200 Ultra. It's nice and wide. It's even 1mm wider than the X200 Ultra, and also pretty good in competition when it comes to video performance there. But in terms of photo quality, it is mostly the X200 Ultra that is more details, better HDR. Colors is debatable there. I think the Huawei is still rocking more accurate colors than the Vivo, also in size natural colors, but that's it. Now we come to the most controversial thing probably for most people, where some people say I'm biased towards Huawei or Vivo or whatever. I'm giving Huawei the almost perfect score of 5 here, which is 4.98, just because two things are missing there. One is the color accuracy at 10x. You saw it with this gate photo where 3.7 looks nice, and then when you go to 10x, the colors are wrong. This is something they have to fix, this color accuracy. If they fix this, then it's 4.99. The other thing is the long zoom range, and this is where Vivo shines, especially like 30x and more with processing. Huawei tends to process so aggressively, like texts and such things, that they can have some issues with a little bit over sharpness. And you saw it also in the higher close-up shots. The Vivo maintains this three-dimensional kind of look, where the Huawei's processing has some flaws still. So this is why at the higher processing, Vivo is better than Huawei currently. But when it comes to 10x, I'm amazed by how well Huawei is beating here the X200 Ultra. It is, not a class-leading kind of difference between those two, but it is a definitely noticeable difference at 10x. And even when you go below 3.7x, so 89mm on Huawei, and it's I think 85 on the Vivo, it is a tad sharper. Yes, there's sharpening applied as well, but it is not unnatural kind of sharpening. At least what I saw on my latest device running HarmonyOS, what is it, 5.1.217 SP12. 12? Is it 12 or 2? 12, I think it is, 12. Yeah. So in this version, or on this version, the Huawei is performing better in terms of detail levels there, also at the 89 or 85 millimeters in comparison. So yes, nearly perfect zoom and portrait photo quality. And we have to talk about the second part, portraits. Yes, portraits, I also give Huawei the benefit of the doubt. Not the benefit of the doubt, but in all my portraits, I had nicer colors of my face, of the face of people that I photographed on the Huawei. Also, when you have like group shots, also when you use the portrait mode, for example, it has the ability, especially when you have like the 2x zoom or something like this on, to have both faces sharp, like of the person in the foreground and the one in the background. And this is done via the variable aperture, which is quite nice, and processing for sure as well, somehow. The portraits are looking nicer in terms of colors. The crispiness and detail level are almost identical to the X200 Ultra, and this is also giving it a boost there, because colors, it's just a little bit better. And in this, you have to nitpick.
when you're coming so close, you have to nitpick here. And here I like the Huawei a little bit better. This is why we have 4.98 points. It's nearly perfect of a telezoom camera that we have here. Same goes for video recording quality. It's just better on the Pura 80 Ultra. You see it with the selfie. This is the weakest point of the Vivo. I don't know why they're not fixing it. The stabilization is meh. It's just not good. And if it would be better, then immediately it would go to 4.8 points, because this is the most ridiculous point. The other issue that I have with the Vivo X200 Ultra's video recording quality in comparison to the Pura 80 Ultra is this ridiculous amount of sharpening and HDR effect that you have when you're recording with the ultra wide angle. Yes, the ultra wide angle by default is already sharper. You don't have to apply this lots of sharpening and HDR kind of effect on the Vivo to look like this. It can be a bit softer. Huawei is showing it, and most occasions the ultra wide angle I like a bit better the footage on the Huawei, because it's a bit more natural. It's also wider by default, but it's a bit more natural looking there. And then of course the 1-inch type sensor with this nice background blur is pretty comparable to the nice background blur that we have on the 35 on the X200 Ultra. Better stabilization on the front, and also I think the smoothness into zooming in and zooming out, it's a tad more to my liking. 4.8 points on the Pura 80 Ultra. I think it is on par with the, also in terms of stabilization, maybe we'll check this out with the Oppo Find X8 Ultra, that is also very, very good here, but I will check them out in a different comparison. Autofocus performance is the same, both have some hit and misses, and it's not like they don't have LiDAR kind of sensor, they have laser AF as well as assistant, but the LiDAR one, it's very fast, quick and accurate. On the Magic 6 RSR, for example, is helping there to give it even a bit more in terms of focus points. And Sony is, I have to mention it, Sony's AF is just very, very good. Front camera is also where I see a huge difference between Huawei and Vivo. Huawei is better. It's better at night, the processing looks more natural, and it's better at daylight as well. The processing looks a bit natural. Portrait shots on the front camera, however, it's a bit hit or miss, because the cutout is much better on the Vivo, where the Huawei is not so great. But in general, the front camera on the Huawei has more details, looks more natural, and is just better than on the Vivo. Front-facing camera is definitely one of the weakest points on the X200 Ultra. Camera UI-wise, the Vivo X200 Ultra has the better UI. Everything is very nicely done one-handed. Yes, the Huawei has also upgraded, especially with its new HarmonyOS camera application. Most things are made one-handed, but there are some stupid decisions. Why hiding the timer in a settings page instead of making it a quick setting, just like Vivo has it, for example. Extra features, the Vivo is a little bit better here, 4.6 times, had like 25 frames per second, 50 frames per second in Pro mode, for example, has this portrait video mode with lots of LUT filters that you can apply. Yes, log, both have log. Pura 80 Ultra in its Chinese version also has in Pro mode the possibility to record log. I wish they also would add such a thing as applying LUTs directly in camera like Vivo is doing it, because I really, really like this feature on Vivo. It makes like this one of the best in terms of like video recording when you want to edit your colors a little bit directly while filming or before filming, or when filming, not like in post editing and so on, because you don't have time for that. We know that. So yes, this is my comparison between those two. Where does it lead us? I showed you already the ranking here. Basically, we have number one still the Vivo X200 Ultra. Yes, some Huawei fans will now cry out, but like I said, they have the potential with easy fix of the telephoto lens to get maybe on par, maybe even beating the Vivo X200 Ultra. When Huawei would add like also some more extra features like 25 and 50 frames per second recording, for example, in Pro mode, and portrait video filters, LUTs that you can directly apply in camera, that would be nice. And make like the timer for finally a quick setting there. The camera I would be getting more points, and then we have like equal points, or the Huawei might even be able to beat the Vivo. Huawei is better in video recording. The Huawei is, yes, it is better in the telezoom performance. The rest is almost identical, besides the ultra wide angle, where the Vivo has a clear win there. And software wise, Vivo, and processing wise, Vivo has top notch there. Color accuracy is something where everyone is praising size natural colors, me too. But the red maple sensor, it's called red maple, I hope, that Huawei is using here is doing some great work with color accuracy. And it will be very interesting to see it performing against the Oppo Find X8 Ultra that also has a multi-spectrum color analyzing sensor. And we will see which one of those will then win. So if you're interested in this, stay tuned, like, subscribe. Until the next time, bye.